Now I request our HOD Dr. Vilas Shinde sir to welcome and introduce today's guest speaker, Dr. Sliba sir. Thank you, sir. Now I will request Dr. Vilas Shinde sir, the convener and host of this conference, to proceed further. Thank you.
Yes. Good morning, one and all.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, Sliba sir.
Good morning to you. Good morning.
So I welcome you as today's keynote speaker for this online workshop. I welcome all the delegates of this 1 week online workshop. Today is the third day. I welcome our principal of the Tamege College of Engineering, all head of departments, delegates, students, and my other colleague of III, as well as the faculty friends. Friends, this is our third day of this online workshop, which we have started from from 18th of May 2020, that is Monday. Now we are entering in this third day with this very profound speaker and a very senior person, Dr. George Sliba. He is working in KCF, that is K. Chitilapalli Foundation. I will introduce about the organization. K. Chitilapalli Foundation, KCF, is an organization having a prime objectives of charitable activities in India in a corporate level without any discrimination as to religion, caste, and gender. It is an non-profit organization under the section 25 of the Companies Act. It is registered office at Takanadu, Kochi, and this organization is helping the hands to the society in various ways. It contributes in several ways to the below poverty line people in India. Dr. George Sliba is working in this organization as executive director since last 3 years. Dr. George Sliba is the former chairman and managing director of FACT Limited, the biggest central public sector undertaking in the state of Kerala. He was the chairman of GUTS Electromech Limited, a subsidiary of V-Guard Industries, and also the joint managing director of V-Guard Industries Limited. Currently, he is the executive director of K. Chitilapalli Foundation, a non-profit organization working for free welfare of the poor and the needy persons. He is a member of the governing council of Kerala State Productivity Council and Honorable Dean of Albertian Institute of Science and Technology. He has more than 4 decades of industrial experience in leading public and private sector undertakings in the country in senior management positions. He is a graduate in mechanical engineering with first class honor from Kerala University, MTech in industrial engineering from IIT Madras, postgraduate diploma in management from All India Management Association, and doctorate in social science from the Kochi University of Science and Technology. He has undergone a senior management program in UK as a British Council scholar and holds a certificate in training and development from the Institute of Training and Development UK. He is a fellow of 3 reputed professional bodies in the country, the All India Management Association, the National Institute of Personnel Management, and the Indian Institution of Industrial Engineering. He is presently the president of the Indian Institution of Industrial Engineering, Kerala chapter, and a member of National Council of Indian Institute of Industrial Engineering, National Headquarters at Mumbai. So I welcome you, Sliba sir, for this nice your presentation in this particular workshop, and we are eager to listen you as far as your knowledge, your wisdom, and it will be very fruitful on the topic of the productivity and management of change. So I will request Sliba sir to start the session.
So once again, good morning to all the friends who are assembled here. Friends, this is a great opportunity for us to come together in this COVID time to utilize the time available to us, the lockdown period, for upskilling and also to improve the knowledge and skills that we already have to equip ourselves to meet the challenges that will emerge after the post-COVID period. I would like to thank Professor Dr. Shinde for the kind words of introduction he has made about me. I'm extremely thankful to be associated with the National Institute of Industrial Engineering and also the professional body in which Dr. Shinde is the treasurer and is leading the institution. Now we are extremely happy that we are getting together today as part of the workshop, a 1 week workshop that is being organized by your institute for the benefit of the student community and also for the faculty community in this part of the country. I would also like to say that, but this is a time when we are facing a lot of crisis. It has already been mentioned in the introductory words by Professor Shinde uh, that, we are passing through a very, very difficult situation today. Not us, the country, but the whole globe is passing through a difficult situation. And as it is, we would feel like, okay, it's a gloomy picture for us. We do not know what is going to happen in the days to come. But then we should also realize that such calamities or such instances or such situations or pandemic, what we are talking about today, and many other things, many other situations, disturbing situations that we are seeing today are not new to the history. It was there in the past as well, and you would also find that people have all survived and they are going ahead. So we have believe in ourselves that this too will pass, and we will all emerge out of this COVID-19 situation, and we will all emerge out, and then we have to ask ourselves the question, okay, the post COVID-19 situation, world, the industry, the academia, the environment in which we are going to place today, the society, everything is going to be different. We are already started experiencing the difference today. So let us also ask ourselves, will we be ready after the COVID scenario? Will we be ready to meet on the challenges, the new challenges that will be emerging in the new world, in the post-COVID world? This is what we have to look at, and that is the context in which this program is being organized. Looking at all the people around, we should also see that this is a period where we are all sitting idle, or you are locked down, you don't have anything to do, but then how effectively you are utilizing your time. And this workshop, I would say, is an opportunity for us to utilize our time effectively for upskilling, for knowledge acquisition, for skill acquisition, and also to have a change in our attitude, change in our attitude to life, change your attitude about the whole community, the world around us. So I would like to thank each one of you for this great opportunity that you have given me to be part of this seminar, to be part of this workshop which has started on 18th. And I am also happy that the topic that I am going to discuss today may be a topic which is known to us, known to each one of you. Productivity, management of change, all these things are known to us. But I would like to consider request you to consider this in the context of the present environment in which we are passing through. We have to believe in ourselves. We have to come out more productive. We have to come out more skilled, and we have to have a change in our mindset. That is most important, that we will and we can. We will do that, and we will emerge out more successfully. The history tells us that World War II, Japan was totally devastated, but where is it now? Japan has been able to research, come back, and become one of the strongest powers. Whether it is in industry, whether it is in manufacturing, it has been able to do. You would also find that most of the inventions that has taken place, that has been after or during the World War period, after the World War period. So we are going to see a lot of developments, a lot of improvements, a lot of innovations that will take place after the post-COVID period. And let us hope for the best, and let us all hope that we will equip ourselves to meet all these challenges. I would just start with a quote from one of the leading management thinkers who is no more, Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker used to describe turbulent times. Turbulent times are the times of opportunity for all those who are prepared to accept the reality and who are prepared to look at the opportunities that are around us, the emerging opportunities. It is actually the period or the time for leadership. It is actually the time for each one of us to look into ourselves and then equip ourselves and be prepared to meet those challenges. So that if you are prepared to meet those challenges, it is definite that you are going to succeed. Now, with these few words, let me start with the topic that I'm going to handle today. I have already mentioned, just already been mentioned that it is going to be productivity and management of change. Uh, all of us are aware of the manufacturing scenario, the industry scenario in which we are placed today. And we all know that competitiveness is the one thing that helps the company to grow, helps the company to survive in this constantly changing environment. It has been mentioned that change is the only constant that we see in this world. So this world is changing so fast. Earlier, the rate of change was slower, but now we find that the rate of change is so fast that unless we are able to meet up with the rate of change that is happening around us, we will be doomed. So this is where we are, and then it is necessary for any organization to improve its own performance on a day-by-day basis. Now, I would just like to give you, just like to you, we are all heard about Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt is the fastest runner in the world. He has got the Olympics medal. He has got so many medals in 100 meters race. He always clocked a time that is much slower than any of his competitors could do. So people started asking him, many people asked him, now who is going to be your competitor? You are much ahead of all others, all those people in the second place or third place. Who is your competitor? To whom are you going to compete every time you come for Olympics or some other international or national games? Then Usain Bolt said, my competition is with myself. I'm competing with myself every day when I wake up. What I am thinking is, can I be better than what I was yesterday? Can I be better than what I was yesterday? Or tomorrow, can I make it better than today? Now, this is what we all of us have to think about, and productivity, continuous improvement is only about that. So what I will be discussing with you today has a relevance to industry, has a relevance to each one of you in your daily life, has a relevance to all of us as individuals, productive individuals. So productivity, all of you know that, but then we will think more about it, various aspects of productivity. That is one part of it. The second one is the management of change. All of you know that change management is the most critical aspect in any organization where change is to be implemented. We all know that many studies have shown 75% of the proposals or the improvement proposals could not deliver the results or could not give the desired results because it could not be implemented. Why change is being resisted? There are many reasons for that. We also know we have traditionally, or we by nature, we resist change. We are used to doing a particular style of functioning, style of working. Therefore, change is always opposed. Mentally or physically, you will oppose change, especially in the context of unionized labor. When any change you would like to bring about in the manufacturing situation, unless this is they are convinced about the need for change, it's going to be resistant. So managing change is one of the important challenges of management, one of the important challenges of leadership, one of the important challenges of each one of us in our day-to-day interactions, in a day-to-day life. So these two things, this is the theme on which we will be developing today's talk, and I'll be spending some time with you. And it will be. I don't think there will be anything new for you to take, but then I would only hope that it will make you think. It will make you think about how we can as individuals contribute more productively, how we can as organizations contribute more productively, what are the concerns that we have to address if we have to be more productive and more useful in this environment. Friends, with these few words, I would like to share my slide and then start with the slide presentation. But then, okay, and then in between, I would like to supplement, whatever I would like to do that.
Beginning, yes, correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now, already the topic has been explained, productivity and management of change. Now, the theme, how I will be presenting it is, I would just like to present before you that higher productivity is very much essential for achieving excellence in manufacturing and for organizational success in the competitive business environment. All of you are aware of it, and therefore we have to strive for higher productivity. But any productivity improvement involves change. Anything where you want, it's a change for the better. You want to do something better. There is an old system. You want to change over to a new system. So this change brings about some problems, some issues which have to be tackled. The change not only affects the work, the job that is being carried out, it affects the worker who is doing it, and it also affects the workplace, the context, the situation in which the work is being carried out. So successful implementation of the new system by managing change is essential if you have to derive the gains of productivity. This is the theme on which the presentation will be made. Okay, friends. Now, I would like to plan to discuss today's topic in three parts. The first would be on the productivity concept part. All of you are aware of it, I know that, but at the same time, I would like to, I have tried to tell you, how traditionally this productivity concept was evolved and how it was used, and why there are some issues concerned with aligning it with today's business environment. So in the first part, we will be looking at productivity as a concept. What is productivity? The traditional approach to productivity, which all of you know, is a labor productivity, focusing on the labor, improving the labor productivity, reducing the number of people, all that, and improving productivity in other factors as well. And what are the benefits of productivity improvement? The benefits that accrue to the management, the benefits that accrue to the labor, the benefits to the government, the community, to the nation. So all that, in short, we will be just touching upon these things in part one in the productivity concept. And then we will move to the second part where we will try to rethink about productivity. Is the traditional approach to productivity is enough to meet the challenges of the changing business environment? So we will just discuss, what are the changes that we see in the business environment of today. In the first session, the introductory session, those of you who have attended the 18th, held on 18th, the eminent professor has mentioned about education 4.0. A professor mentioned education 4.0 is for preparing the younger generation, preparing the students, the younger generation for meeting the challenges of industry 4.0. Industry is also moving ahead. Industry has gone to the fourth stage now, and therefore to meet the requirements of the industry, you need to have a change in the education as well. So business is also undergoing change. Whether the traditional approach of productivity improvement is enough for meeting the challenges posed by the new business environment. And what we therefore propose is that an integrated total productivity approach is needed. We have to see business as a total system, and then an integrated approach is needed. And we will also see some examples, how organizations are transforming themselves to create value for the society, value for the customers, and how they are changing themselves, transforming themselves, redefining their objectives. And the third part will be on sustainable value creation. Today we talk about sustainability. Sustainability, organizations that survive after you, organizations that adds value to the community on a continuous basis and is sustainable. We have to redefine the objectives of the organization, of such organizations. Is it just profits for which this organization work, or is it something else? Is it so? We have to redefine the objectives of the organization, and then we have to also examine how sustainable value creation can be achieved, and how productivity techniques have to be aligned to achieve this sustainable value creation. And we will also discuss in short about the triple bottom line approach uh, for managing organization, for managing productivity improvements, managing growth, and also some a short presentation on managing change as well. This is how we are going to the topics that we are going to handle, and I hope this is okay with you. We will go from one part to the other part, and at the end you will have the opportunity to ask any questions that you feel relevant to the particular topic. I hope it's okay with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Okay,
So
okay.
question answer we will
Now,
take at last.
at the last. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Friends, the part one is productivity concept, and as I already mentioned, this is something which we are all aware of. We all know production. What is production? It's the conversion of the raw materials or input into some usable product or service. This is the activity that goes on is what is production. And we know what productivity is. There is a difference between production and productivity. We also know that there is a difference between just the productivity and efficiency, what we talk about. We also know that there is a difference between this efficiency and effectiveness in a manufacturing environment. So we will touch upon these aspects, also in this part. Now, I would just give you a very, very small example. I know that there are people from various disciplines in this program. So we won't take any technical example and try to explain to you. I would just give you a very, very simple example. A small tea vendor, small shop who is selling teas. Now, this is a typical example of a production or manufacturing enterprise, small enterprise. So now, what happens? How is the tea made? How is the tea made? An example I have just given. You need certain materials. You need a manpower, a person for making it. You need machinery or equipment, some equipments for making it. You need money to buy all the resources for it, some space, you need land, you need everything. And that is how all these resources then becomes your inputs, the materials, the manpower, the equipment that you use, the money that you need, all that becomes your input for this manufacturing process, so making of this tea. And the product that comes out is tea. Tea as a product, it comes out, and then you see what is happening inside the manufacturing. Now the manufacturing process, the processing part will involve a lot of steps, a lot of activities. And there is normally we make for analysis, we make a process flow. There is a process flow I have just made here. From starting with, you have a kettle, wash kettle, boil water, add tea. You make black tea, you make black tea, then you make boiled milk, then you add both together, make tea, then add sugar, you make tea. This is what is done. So don't go into the details of that. That is not what is intended here. What I have presented here is a flow chart by which we analyze what is being done, the activities that are being done. And then if you look at, suppose this person is able to make in 1 hour, say 50 cups of tea. Now, what we will be interested in knowing in terms of productivity would be, will you be able to make more number of cups of tea in 1 hour? Can he make 55 cups of tea? Can he make 60 cups of tea? But all that, it is all centered on the output part of it, the quantity part of it, the volume part of it. But then you should also realize that if this is to be done, okay, there need to be a change in the resources that are being used. There need to be a change in the equipments, or you may need to have more vessels. You may need to have more many things. There need to be a change in process, but this is not possible. So you can make changes and you can make these improvements. And these improvements could be small improvements. Say today you can make, say, 50 cups, then it becomes 55 cups, 60 cups, like that. It could be small improvements. What we small improvements, what we talk about, the continuous improvements or the Kaizen sort of thing, what we are talking about, it could be fine. It could be at the end, a disruptive innovation. What I am talking about disruptive innovation is all these activities are no longer needed if you have a sachet of tea powder, which all mixed together, hot water, and put it into hot water, and you have the tea available with you. Okay, what you see, those you see that in the aircraft, what they serve is like this. You want noodles, they will serve you noodles for your breakfast, and it's like the 2-minute noodles, some hot water and put something into it, close it, and keep it for 5 minutes, and then you have the noodles ready. Now, where is the process that we have talked about, and what is the other thing, disruptive innovation that has taken place? So productivity, when we talk about the change that is happening, could be slow changes that will be happening, but it could also be disruptive innovations. What we look at is that for any improvement, we would try to first ask the purpose. What is the purpose? Can we eliminate the purpose? If we cannot eliminate, can we modify something? Can we combine something? So this is how we bring about improvements. And then when real innovation takes place, there is a disruptive thing that is happening, which will change the whole business. So whole business, know about so many disruptive innovations are taking place in the world today. A few days back, Israel has announced that they have developed a battery that can run on water and air, which can power an automobile. You don't need any oil to run it, any automobile. You don't need it. You don't need even the traditional battery to run it. So what we are talking about is such disruptive innovations also happen, but they are not that frequent, and change is becomes part of that as well. Now, what we have seen here in the organizational context, what you will see is that you will find there are certain inputs, output, and then the processing that takes place inside, and who is responsible for this processing? The management. The inputs are the materials, manpower, machinery, money, and output are products or services. Then productivity is always the relationship between output and input, and this is how the productivity is measured. Now, this is a schematic, that shows, the organization as a system. We have the inputs here, we have the output, products and services, and what takes place inside the organization is transformation process. Now, I will just look at, the traditional approach to productivity. Now, traditional approach, we approach productivity from the labor point of view. Our intention, because we have most of the industries are labor intensive industries, so our objective would be how we can reduce the number of people and get the same output, or how we can get more output from this same number of people. I'm just giving you an example here. Just look at the individual productivity example. So suppose there is an operator who makes 10 pieces per day, and there's an operator who makes 12 pieces a day in the same 8 hours. Then you will say the operator B is more productive than operator A. This is output by input. You find if it is can at 8 hours, 10 by 8, the other would be 12 by 8. So it is more for operator B. Now, the same concept what we can use for shops as well. Suppose you take in the case of shop, 10 operators in unit A produces 100 pieces, and 10 operators in unit B produces 120 pieces. You can definitely say unit B is more productive. Now, another example you can take: 10 operators in unit A produces 100 pieces. Another option: 8 operators unit B produces 100 pieces. Again, we will say that unit B is more productive. You have another example: 10 operators in unit A produces 100 pieces. 11 operators in unit B produces 120 pieces. There again, we would say of unit B is productive, because even though they have used more labor, they have used 10% more labor, the output has been 20% more. That's why it is more. So in all these cases, then you look at what is the output by input, and that is how we are assessing productivity. Now, in actual practice, what happens is, in the first case, in the second case, what I told you, see, you need to make only 100 pieces. The market can absorb only 100 pieces. So what will be the approach management would take? You would try to reduce the number of people, because with 8 people, you would try to make 100 pieces. So 2 persons will be reduced. So the impact on labor will be reduction in labor. There will be job losses for labor, and though there is the reduction has been due to change in the work pattern or method, but people, the remaining people, 8 people, will feel that or perceive that they are overloaded. They are doing much more work, because 10 people were doing the same job earlier. So naturally, there will be a resistance to change, and this resistance is to be overcome. But you should realize that this resistance is only perceptual. This workload is only perceptual, and what work study or productivity improvement techniques aim at is not hard work, not making workers work more harder, but making them work smart. I just want to show one story of two woodcutters. Two woodcutters were engaged for the same job. They were cutting wood, but one was earning less, the other was earning more. But the second person was enjoying also. That he was taking a lot of time out in between. Also, he was earning more. So the woodcutter, who is getting lesser wages, went to the manager and said, "Sir, I'm also doing the same job or much harder work. I'm not taking any time off during the work time. But then why are you paying me less?" Then the manager said, "My system of payment is payment on piece rate, not your time rate, not your 8 hours work. It's piece rate, and what you are producing is less work." And then he said, "Okay, I don't know what the other person is doing differently, but you go and see what he is doing." So the operator who has complained, who has went and looked at the other person, what is he doing? And he found that the morning when he comes, instead of just starting the work from time first manage, what he is doing is he is going out and sharpening his axe, and he is coming back doing it. And after 1 hour again he goes out, he takes time out, sharpen his axe, and then he come out and do it. And he is doing a smart job. Though he is not working as hard as the other person, he is getting more output. So this is what we are looking at in productivity improvement. In all these improvements, we are not trying to overload the people. That is not our intention, because we also realize that the human beings, though it's a resource, they are also partners in business. They are partners in manufacturing. Without them, nothing will happen. So this is the concept on which we approach productivity. Now, productivity, if you look at productivity, could be either factor productivity or total productivity. Factor productivity is nothing but you take individual factors. Labor productivity is a factor productivity. Material productivity is a factor productivity. Material productivity, suppose from one piece of cloth, if a person is able to make, now mask is popular, say 1 meter square piece of cloth, a person is able to make say 20 masks. Another person is able to make from the same piece, 1 meter square piece, 22 masks. That fellow, it is the material. You have reduced the wastage of material. The productivity of material have gone up. The labor productivity has gone up. The material productivity has also gone up. For the same input, you are getting more output. So you have factor productivity. You have total productivity also. Total productivity is an integration of all the resources, and then for all resources put together for the organization. So improving productivity, we have three approaches: increase output for the same input, reduce input for the same output, or increase input for more than proportionate increase on output. These examples we have already seen. Now, the benefits of productivity, that, I just read out, it's just increased profitability, reduced operational costs, optimization of resources, improved customer service, reducing wastages, improving competitiveness of industry, reducing employee fatigue because we want them to do smarter job, increasing benefits for employees, and getting better working conditions. This is what. Now, with this, we will now look at, how productivity, this view of looking at productivity on a factor basis is not the one that is demanded by the new business environment. Now, for this, we would like to have a review of the today's business environment, and then what is lacking in the traditional approach, and the need for a total productivity approach, and how organizations are transforming. Now, I will go to the business environment of today. You have already heard about the changing business environment of today from various speakers in the last earlier sessions as well. I would like to say that you would have all heard about one word in a VUCA word. VUCA word, VUCA word, is very often referred to explain or to represent today's manufacturing or business environment. It is just used to represent a volatile environment, uncertain environment, complex environment, ambiguous environment. This is the environment in which business is placed today. And in such a business environment, all of you know that the organizations that will succeed is the organization that is able to meet those challenges and adapt themselves to these challenges. You know the theory or Charles Darwin's survival of the fittest theory. Darwin says that it is not the strongest of the species, nor the most intelligent that survives, but the most responsive to change, the most adaptive to change. In today's situation as well, the COVID situation also, what you would find is that organizations, nations which are more adaptive to the change, or adaptive to all that the change processes, who will emerge after the COVID period to the new environment and are able to exploit the opportunities, they will be the winners. Now, two eminent management authors, no, two management authors, they are they have a book called Re-engineering the Sorry. They have written a book on re-engineering the corporation. Michael Hammer and James Shamby. These are the names of the authors. A book on re-engineering operation. It has come in the 1990s, but still relevant. They talk about three forces that are acting on any organization, whether it is manufacturing or service organization. And what are these three forces? These three forces are the forces of customer, the forces of competition, the forces of change. These are not new to us. We know that in the past also customer was there. In the past also competition was there, probably not to the extent that we are seeing today. The past also change was happening, probably not at the rate and scale at which that is happening today. But it was all there, but a change, a quantum change, a very, very radical change that you see today. The customers are different. Customers have choice today. Customers want personalized products. The competition is also very, very, very intense today. You need to have competitive advantage, and competitive advantage any organization can get only by two things. One is if they are cost competitive. Cost competition is if they are the cheapest in the industry for making that product. All that cost put together, they are able to make the product at the cheapest, and they are able to offer the product at the right product at the lowest cost. This is cost competitiveness. The other one is differentiation. Cost competitiveness is not going to be a strategy which is going to take the organization for long, because there will be undercutting and the organization will be finally doomed. That's what happened. So therefore, companies look for differentiation. Differentiation is adding more value to a product, more value which the customer is able to realize and recognize and ready to pay for. So maintaining competitive advantage becomes essential. Then meeting the challenges of change, the changes what I was talking about, the disruptive changes, not just the changes that normally otherwise take place. People ask yourself, who are your competitors? Competitors are not the competitors that you see today. Who are the competitors of automobile companies of today? It is not, we were earlier talking, it is not Ford's competitor is General Motors or Nissan or some other. It's not that way people are looking at it. It's not that way the world is going. The competitor of all these companies is Google, could be Google. Because, or the Tesla, which makes the autonomous cars, or that sort of a thing. Or, the example which I talked about, the Israeli company, that has invented the new model, which they are talking about in a car which can run on water and air. So these are the things, these are the competitors. It's not the traditional competitors that you look at. So how to meet the challenges of the competitor becomes an important criteria for organizations. Now, why the traditional approach is not able to meet these challenges? Because the traditional approach, our focus is producing more and more with less and less. This is what we are trying to aim at in the traditional approach. Produce more with less and less, but then you have to ask a fundamental question. Are you producing that what is needed by the market? Are you producing that what is needed by the customer? If you are producing more efficient diesel engines today, and if the entire technology is going to be, the entire automotive industry is going to give way for electric vehicles, where is technology advantage that we have created all over the years? So producing more and more with less and less is not going to take us anywhere. Now, the focusing on the four resources alone is not going to take us, because we have to have an integrated approach, not an individual based approach. Productivity is to be viewed as a multi-dimensional and a dynamic concept. And we should also think that in our output, producing something and then live at that, it's not going to help us. You have to look at, where your product goes, who is going to use it, and what changes are taking place in the environment. So beyond the product, we have to look at beyond the boundaries of your company. We have to look at some meeting customer needs, expectation in terms of cost, quality, service, or meeting the aspirations of people becomes important. So in this context, you have to see organization as a total system. And you would find here, organization, you would find, any organization has an internal environment. So far, our focus on productivity was on the internal environment, looking at the output, looking at the input, and trying to maximize the output or reducing the cost, whatever is possible. Now look at the external environment in which industry is placed. The external environment I have shown in the oval shaped thing, what all are there as the challenges in the external environment. You will find here the internal environment, the inputs, output, and the productivity environment that we are talking about. Then it comes to the markets, and then it is sold in the market, money comes back, and then only the business cycle, the manufacturing cycle goes on. Suppose it is disrupted here at the market, and the market doesn't need your products. The supply demand challenges, the customer choice, the competition I talked about, the technological changes, all these are challenges. Unless your product meets these challenges on an ongoing basis, you won't be able to sell your products. The government policies, the regulatory bodies, the pollution control board, the local bodies, the communities, the activists, all that, if your company is going to pollute, a few days back, there was something, we all know that, in a factory in Vizag, there was gas leak. So much concerns being raised by the community, by the environment. So many things are happening. So organizations have survived all these challenges. Suppliers, financial institutions, trade unions. So this is the external environment, and any improvement that you are focusing on only on the internal environment is not going to help us. So meeting the aspirations of all stakeholders. Stakeholders, what we mean is the internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. I have already explained all these external and internal stakeholders. Now, what needs to be done is a relook on productivity. We are not just asking, are we doing the right things? We have to ask. Not, am I making the product at the lowest cost? Am I making the product at the, doing all that, all that at cheapest rate or with maximum features? But then you have to ask yourself, are you doing the right thing? Peter Drucker, the management expert, says there is the difference between doing things right and doing the right things. What you have been doing in productivity or in the organizations have been doing things right. Okay, how you can make at the lowest cost, how you can make maximum out of whatever is available with us. But then you have to ask yourself, are you doing the right things? Are you doing something, spending money, spending resources on something which is not needed by the market? However efficient you have produced it is not going to deliver results. So know your product, know your customers, know your market, know your competitor, shift focus to value creation. What the customer needs, what the community needs, what the continue emphasis, but then cost reduction, waste control, it has to continue, because competitiveness can come only from reducing the cost and reducing the wastage. So instead of asking what you do today better, faster, cheaper, and smarter, we have to start asking, why do we do what we do at all? Why do we do what we do today? What is the purpose? Has the purpose changed, or has the requirement of the market changed? Can we achieve the same purpose by other means? Can we eliminate, combine, modify? Can you innovate? So these are the questions that we have to constantly ask. I will just touch upon two case studies, not spending more time because we don't have much time available. I need another 5-10 minutes, sir. I think it's okay.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
sir.
Please go
Yeah,
ahead, sir.
yeah,
We can
yeah.
have
So
enough time, sir.
okay. So now I just present before you two case studies. Two case studies, not a big case study for you to, because you already know about that. The first one I'm just presenting before you, the Tata's Nanos car. It's an innovation. It's an improved product. All of you know that. It has been produced at rupees 1 lakh, and the theme was more car per car. Okay, you have reduced the size of the car, but at the same time, without compromising on the number of people that can be accommodated in the car. Same high number of people can be accommodated, and it's a small car. Whatever has been possible with an Indica, Tata's Indica has been possible with Tata's Nano as well. But you would look at, why this did not create a revolution in the sport car industry. It's a big brand. Tata is a big brand, and the product has been promoted by no one other than Ratan Tata himself. He was there with the Tata Nano because it was a dream project for Ratan Tata. Ratan Tata believed that the people, the middle class people, lower middle class people needed a vehicle. Those who are traveling in scooter, with wife and two children, struggling, and when rain comes, they don't have, they cannot protect themselves. So how can I provide a product to them which will meet the requirements, but it will also meet the safety requirements as well? So the car was born, and I would say it's a manufacturing marvel, because if you want to make something small, a lot of changes have to happen. But is it a technological marvel? If you ask it, nobody will say it's a technological marvel. There is nothing new in that. It's again a same car, same technology that is being used. There has been some changes. There has been some cost reduction that has been brought about. There is only one wiper. Then there is many other changes that also has been brought out. But then why it is not? Why we all believe that 1 lakh car, everyone will rush at buying 1 lakh car, or we like to have it as a second car. Those who already own a car, why it has not happened? So this is where the aspirational aspect comes. Value doesn't come from, there are values. Values we categorize as three types of values. One is the use value, or the function itself. The other value is the cost value. When you put all the materials together, all the think of how much it costs. The third one is the esteem value. The esteem value is what finally determines customer choice. Customer will decide, whether this provides me esteem. You don't wear the same type of shoes when you go for when it is your marriage day. You don't wear the same type of dress when it is marriage day, because it's not that, it doesn't provide you any other things. It protects your body or protect your leg, but then it has an esteem value. You spend more money for the esteem value. But here again, it happened. So it was just a frugal innovation, or it is just what I would say is a cost reduction effect in the traditional productivity sense, more car per car. So it did not, so what market requires is something different. There is another example which I would like to present before you. Ford, when they introduced the initial, they wanted to introduce a car for Indian market. They wanted to launch the same car that is being used abroad, and they wanted to make a cost reduction because Indian markets cannot afford the rate at which it was sold in other places. So what they did was they tried to reduce the cost of many places, and the one thing they attacked was, the rear winder, automatic winder they have taken out. It was just very ordinary winders, and the front too, it was automatic winders. And probably they thought that is how some of the cars, when they in the abroad are made, because most of the people sit in the front seats. Probably abroad or India, either lower middle class or the middle class, and we would like to sit at the back seat. And if back seat, those doors have no automatic winders, we won't prefer that. And they realized it later. It was a blind customization or adaptation that has been being done for the local market, which did not succeed. Now what I want to point out is that having your customer in mind, and any productivity improvement change processes should have your customer in mind. Know your customers. Now another example, I will just give you redefining customer experience. I'm not going into details, but you would also know that Mahindra has come out post-COVID, COVID-19. Mahindra has come out with redefining the customer experience, and they say that we are now going to provide our customers a very very ecstasy, customer ecstasy, delighting our customers much more than we could do in the past. In other words, they have taken COVID-19 as an opportunity to exploit the market. How they are doing it is that they say they have launched an app for service, contactless digitized service experience, leveraging technology to redefine customer service. The mobile app, which provides you can book the service, vehicle and pickup. You can choose, and then they will come and take it. They will do an entire thing is video stream. Once a vehicle enters our shop, they will show you what has happened. They dismantle. They will show you the condition of the parts, and they will just tell you, what parts need to be replaced. They will prepare an estimate and send to them online, and then you can approve the estimate, and then they start working all the replacement, and all that will be streamed, video streamed. It will be available in your WhatsApp. You can see what is happening, the work that is really being done, the service updates are being done, the payment also can be made, the vehicle will be delivered at your doorstep, the payment also can be made through online. So see, what experience they are going. They are redefining customer experience. This is how companies are taking advantage of the emerging challenges and opportunities. Now, friends, with this, I now go to the third part. What we have been discussing, how to create sustainable value creation for organizations. Now, sustainable organizations are organizations that do not care only about the present, but look into the future. Sustainability, they say, sustainability is meeting the needs of the present generation, at the same time not compromising the needs of the future generations. We cannot overexploit the resources that is available to us. We have to leave something for the other generations as well. We enjoy what has been left by the previous generations today. Don't destroy for them also to enjoy. So redefining the objectives of the business for sustainability is needed. Sustainable value creation, all productivity enhancement approaches that you adopt should have this in mind. And this approach is what they call the triple bottom line approach. There is only one bottom line normally we call for our companies. That bottom line is the profit. The top line is your sales. the sales goals, what sales revenue that brings in, and the bottom line is your profit. In the triple bottom line approach, you have two other bottom lines, which we will come across soon in the next slides. And then managing this change process is also important. That is how we as organization will be creating sustainable value. Now, how would you redefine the objectives of the business? Now, traditionally, all of us, if you ask a business, what is your basic objective? What is your basic purpose? The business will say, we exist for making profits. In a way, it is correct. In a way, it is correct, because without profit, no business can survive. So profitability is there, but then what we have to realize is that profit alone is not enough. The well-being of all the stakeholders and community, which we have discussed in the earlier part when rethinking about productivity, is important. And therefore, you have to look at three bottom lines, which I already mentioned to you. And the three bottom lines are three P's, what they call three P's. The first P is profit, okay? The second P is people, the people who are involved in the business, in the community. The third P is the planet, the earth we live in. So these three P's are the concerns today for organizations, for manufacturing industries, for service industries. So these three P's has to be taken care of. Any improvement that we suggest will be towards taking your organization to sustainability. These three P's are people, planet, and profit. Now, what are these people? What are these planet? What are the things that come under people? What are the things that come under planet? What are the things that come under profit? People, the employees within the company, the community. People, companies constantly ask, what do we do to the community, society in which we operate? Are we a burden to the society? Are we destroying the environment? Are we a burden to the society? We are emitting effluents, we are emitting smoke that is creating problem for the community, making them sick. Are we in an effort to give back to the society? Because we are taking many things from society. The existence of the company depends upon the society. Society is permitting you to perform. Are you giving back to the society? The other one is planet. Do you have concern for environment? Are you able to reduce your ecological carbon footprint? Your carbon emissions you are able to reduce. You are able to reduce waste, recycle waste, reuse waste. Are you able to invest in renewable energy? Are you able to manage your natural resources more effectively and improving your logistics? Now, reducing waste, helping your, renewable energy. I would like to highlight, there's an airport, from the place I come from in Kochi, there is an international airport. Kochi airport is totally powered by solar power. This is the only airport in the world which is totally powered by solar power. It doesn't use any other power, only from solar energy. And this is how the airport is done. So it is possible. Many airports are not taking this queue, and they are also doing it because airports have large area of land available, and then they can all install panels and they can generate electricity, and it is happening in other places as well. Now, the third thing, what you will be talking about is profit. So profit, generally, we think that profit conflicts with people and profit, planet. If you do more for the people, give more wages to people, it's going to affect your profitability. If you do more community service, it's going to affect your profitability, but that is a wrong concept. If you don't take care of your people, if you don't take care of planet, you are not going to be there. Now this is so. Now the thrust is there for green productivity. Your people are talking about not just productivity, green productivity, minimize the negative environmental impact, synthesize the concepts of environmental protection and productivity. Whatever productivity improvements is, whatever alternate materials you suggest, it will be biodegradable. That's how we are looking at it. The packaging, your transportation, the production processes, the effluent treatment, all that, you are looking at, the environment as well. The objective is to design environmentally sound products and services to produce low or no waste in the manufacture, use and maintenance while meeting the functional and logistic needs. And objective is to minimize the total life cycle cost from design to disposal. Now, there was a culture, that has been developed over the years, that, throwaway culture. A pen, dot pen, if you have, just throw away after use. But in the past, you remember, we used to buy refills and put and use it. When you throw away the plastic part of it, the body of it, it again becomes, a burden on the environment. And again, it involves more money. Again, a pen has to goes for recycling and all that. So reusing and the total life cycle cost is what matters today. Now, in this respect, unleashing the creativity and innovation of employees is important. Traditionally, we look at employees as resources. Employees, giving wages to employees, we think as something, they are paid for doing work for us. But remember, employees are not just workers; they are partners in our business. Employees with management, with all of us together, we only generate value for the customer. And we should also realize that the front line is what, represents the face of the company. Many of companies, many people might not have seen the managing director or CEO of the company, but they would have seen the first line salesman. They would have seen the salesman. So he gives the impression about the company's impression. A customer feels, from the dealings behavior, from the attitude of the salesman. So employees are equally important or more important than, what we consider today. So and they are the people who can bring in a lot of innovation, and Japanese have realized this. And the Kaizen technique is basically on unleashing the creativity innovation of employees. What they do is, allowing them, empower them, give them the training if they need so, and then allowing them to think differently in the workplace, and then suggest solutions for small problems that occur in the workplace. So the role of management, therefore, will be empowering the people and unleashing their creative abilities for productivity and innovation. Now, I will just, spend 2 minutes for the managing change at workplace. Managing change at workplace, we have seen, whether it is a small change, a Kaizen project that is implemented, or a project like, a disruptive project which disrupts the entire status quo. Whatever be the thing, what is more important is acceptance or buy-in for the people concerned. And the most important for that change is, if it's a change that is going to be made out in the factory, in the manufacturing process, it is the employees. If it is a change for the community, it is for the community to accept. You would find in the COVID-19, you would find a lot of communication being given by the top leaders of the country. It is why this communication, the first thing is to emphasize the need for change. We have to change. We have to understand that this is a pandemic for which, we don't have any solution at the moment. So keep away from it. We have to change. So they are trying to, and how do they manage it? How do they manage it? You would find, all the places people are going with masks. There is no compulsion on that. People are now started doing it. They have realized the need for it. So the most important thing in bringing about change is creating the need for change. And in that, communicating the vision is more important. Government has said our intention is to reduce the number of deaths. Many places we are really, we are sorry that many human lives are being lost, but we would like to contain that. We would like to reduce that. The lockdown, there will be people who will be asking, why lockdown, why not let all of us free. But lockdown is for a good cause, for a good reason. It is for a good purpose. And when that is made known to the people, may they accept it, and then implementing the change, and it is going to sustain. And government also has made it clear, and the leaders have made it clear, that you don't think that, tomorrow we have a date from post-COVID date, and then everything will be let free. It's not going to happen like that. It will take time, because we have to develop a vaccine for that. So many other things have to happen But so we will continue with so we will have we will make it stick that we will have certain change in our mindset, washing hands, people who are veterinary or wearing masks, all that we will continue to do. So creating a climate for change and engaging and enabling the organization implementing sustaining change is what matters, and that is the way you have to implement change. And I would like to end with the last slide that I have. I would like to say that we are what some courts, few courts, we are what we repeatedly do, and excellence is therefore not an act but a habit. I stop. So now this, what we have to realize is that whatever we have been discussing so far has been just common sense. There is no big technique involved. The mechanism is just common sense. Most of the productivity improvement, what we are talking about, they are just common sense. We need technology in some cases when technological innovation is needed, intervention is needed, but then most of the cases it is common sense. So what is needed is an attitude of mind. Can you make it as a habit? Can you make improvement as a habit? I was talking about the example of Usain Bolt and many other athletes like that. They, every day when they wake up, they just have a mental vision. I am going to be better than what I was yesterday. This mental change in the mindset. And I also would like to highlight one quote by Professor C.K. Prahalad. He's a professor, eminent professor of Indian origin. He was a Michigan University professor. No,
Yes, sir.
he has a book on new age of innovation, and he says, if you are not profitable, you cannot afford the future. But if you are not innovative, you have no future. So profitability is the key, because only with profit, you can meet the needs and requirements, or even for the community. If you have to do community service, you need money, but then you have to be innovative in us. Creativity, unleashing the creativity and innovation of each one of us. Our capability, our potential is very, very important. Productivity is about that only. Unleashing your own potential to think out of the box. Now, Shiva Khera is also a very renowned author of Indian origin. He don't do different things. They do things differently. They do things differently. They differentiate themselves by adding value. No, not that so that is how in the market, in the emerged environment, you can survive. So, friends, I would like to close at this. Let us make productivity, creativity, and innovation a habit for each one of us. Let us have a change in the mindset of each one of us, and let us hope that the post-COVID period will open up a lot of opportunities for us to exploit and to build a better India and a better nation. Thank you, friends, very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much with this nice presentation. I would like to request all the participants, they have to raise their question by three modes. They can raise the question by raising their hands. They can raise the question in Slibas's chat box or in my chat box also. Yes, Nilesh Shinde, sir.
With limited resources, if we have higher productivity, either that will impact on quality of product or either on mass production.
Okay, can I?
With limited resources, if we have higher productivity, so either that will impact on quality of product or mass production.
Yeah, can I respond now? I will.
Yes,
Say, yeah, friends. As you said, productivity. The first phase, when we talked about in the concept of productivity, though we said that it's all making more, but ultimately we have seen that the product has to go into the market. So if you make a product with lesser quality, this has happened in the past. in mass production, people produce more and more, but at the end, during inspection, you find that a lot of rejections are there. We have moved from an individualized production to batch production to mass production, but then we have now perfected it. That's what the Kaizen, what Toyota production systems are all about, where there is one small mistake happening, they stop the entire production line, and then the entire operators rush and find out what is the problem, they try to solve it, and then you restart. So everyone gets aware about there is an issue, all of them collectively. Quality, customer acceptance, quality, reliability, without that you cannot sustain. So if you just produce more and more without quality, okay, of course, technically you can say that you improved your productivity. That is not going to deliver results for you. And that is what, we said. So rethinking productivity, what we said, we have to look at, the customer. If bad quality is acceptable to the customer, it is fine. But which customer will buy the bad quality? So a product without productivity, without quality, a product without reliability, a product that do not offer the service that the customer need, that cannot be considered as a productive transformation or productive change.
Yes,
Sir,
thank you.
another question. Uh,
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead, Nilesh sir.
can we correlate productivity with efficiency of product?
Again, the basic thing that we discussed earlier. These two things, though they are same, but they are slightly different. When we talk about productivity, what we normally say is that just like the friend who asked question first, improving the quality of production. That is what we look at. When you talk about productivity, but efficiency is how efficiently you have produced. So waste reduction becomes important. Resource utilization becomes important. All that becomes important. Yeah, so in productivity with efficiency is what is needed. I would say productivity with efficiency alone is not enough effectiveness. Productivity with efficiency will give you a cheaper product, reliable product, but effectiveness is what is the outcome, whether the product is accepted by the market, whether the customer is able to buy that product. So productivity along with efficiency, along with effectiveness, is what finally matters. Okay, effectiveness is the results out of all that. But we have done a lot of things, but what is the result finally that has come out? So productivity with efficiency with effectiveness is what we are looking at, and not just productivity in terms of the volume.
Okay. Practically,
Next question. We will take the
okay.
next question. Jitesh Tiwari. Jitesh Tiwari, please
Good
ask.
morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good
Hello.
morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for the great session. So my question is, sir, as you mentioned in your session, we have to bring the change in every field. So, sir, for example, if we are automizing an industry or we are adapting new techniques like robots in the industry, due to which there is a loss of jobs, manpower. So, sir, how this change will affect on those labors?
Yeah, it is. I think yeah. Well, there is very relevant question. In today's business environment, when robots are used for jobs, it is going to affect the labor. But we should also realize that robots are not going to be used indiscriminately. Robots are going to be used in place, or people are going to use robots in repetitive jobs or jobs in some extreme conditions. Robots definitely will replace labor in such situations, like for example, in an automobile shop, manufacturing shop, painting, or in the painting booth, all that, if an operator is going to do it, it's a hard job for them. But whereas a robot can do it much more, because there is nothing, the environment is immaterial. So but there is a displacement of labor, and labor, what we would like to see is that there will be other jobs that will be emerging. I'm saying that I'm not saying that there will not be reduction in labor. Definitely, reduction in labor will take place, and therefore we have to equip ourselves for the other skills that emerge. There will be jobs in other areas, other skill sets. Many companies, when they implement automation, what they do is there will be reduction in labor. They don't send out the people. What they do is, they reskill them. They use them in some other areas. Wherever possible, that has to be done. But there are situations where it is not possible. Then people have to be reduced. That happens, but that is inevitable. It is for us to keep ourselves relevant to the environment. I would say that there will not be any job losses. Definitely there will be job losses, but job creation also is happening in some other sectors. We have to equip ourselves to meet those requirements and change our jobs. That is the only option that is available.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you so much. Next question is we can take from Jaideep Bhosle. Please unmute your mic, Jaideep. I have already provided you the access. Jaideep Bhosle.
Yes, sir. Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, please take your mic nearby and please speak. Yeah. Go ahead, sir is listening to you. Please ask the question.
Yeah, please.
Prasanna, please provide the mic to this Jaideep.
Yes, sir.
Bhosle.
Sir, they are muted at their side, sir.
So ask him, please unmute at his end. Jaideep, you please unmute your mic at your end. He probably having some difficulty. Yes.
Yeah.
Mangesh. Mangesh.
Hello, Sliva sir, good afternoon. It was a very
Good
nice
afternoon,
session.
Thank you.
Sir, I had a doubt. From the formula of productivity, it is very clear that productivity is output-oriented concept. So I want to understand, how does sustainability relate to productivity? How can it be integrated as such in productivity?
Yeah. It is an output-oriented concept, but then this output doesn't, that we discussed in the second part when we said it doesn't end with the output. Output is not the product that you have. See, the output has value. It is value creation. When you make an output, actually what happens in a manufacturing process, value creation only. Okay, and you created a product which has value. Now, does the customer find value in it? If there is no value for that product, the value of the product is zero. It is not a product at all. It becomes a product only when the customer buys that product, customer sees value in that product. So sustainability, suppose the customer wants sustainability. If you are not building sustainability into your product, that product has no value. So that is where we talk about productivity. When you build your product, when you have the processes, when you build your product, have a product that is sustainable, and it is acceptable to the customer, to the community, to the government, and all that. No, government, you know that, government has prescribed a lot of things like, packing, it should be like this, or you have to take back certain things. Battery manufacturers, you have to take back batteries, you should not allow that to. So sustainability is that you put all those systems also in place, so that getting back all that, reprocess it. You don't just throw it away. You reprocess it. For example, a battery manufacturer get back all the batteries that he has sold through the same channels through which he has sold it. Gets back the batteries. He reclaims all that from the battery, the plastic parts, the lead part. Again, he gives to the same suppliers for making, and then it comes back. Another person, what we do is that in the cycle, recycle, reuse. This is what we are trying to do. Okay, I think that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. There is one guest, 458454. I don't know the name of. Please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
madam.
Hello.
Good morning,
Yeah.
sir. This is Meera Sose from the chemical faculty.
Okay, okay. Yes. Please
Good
ask.
morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Sir, my means we are producing any type of the commodity. Our aim is to increase the yield with the same input. Also
Okay,
reduce
okay.
the process time as well as overall the process or the cost reduction. Okay.
Okay, okay,
Overall cost reduction is our motto.
okay.
So my question is, what is the influence of the productivity on the 3P pyramid? As you know, the profit, people, and planet. Can you
Okay.
explain me by taking any example?
Okay, okay.
I'm having
I would,
chemical background, sir.
yeah, chemical background. I just understand chemical background. You just
Uh-huh.
take, a chemical, chemical industry. Okay, a small chemical industry. I would just say I'm not mentioning any chemical industry, but you talk you anyway. One chemical industry that is no more Union Carbide. You have all heard about that company which was existing in Bhopal.
Yes,
No,
yes.
As
Yes.
a chemical engineer,
yeah.
Union Carbide. Union Carbide was a very successful company. Okay, I agree. It was a very
Yes,
successful
I
company.
agree that we can
You
go to
agree? You agree?
any plastic
Yeah.
industry, or we can say any
No,
fertilizer
no.
industry also.
I will come to fertilizer industry. Okay, yeah. Now, I was giving an example that company is no more because it has not taken care of the environment. Okay, so that is why productivity without environment. Now let us come to you say plastic industry or a fertilizer industry. Okay, I come from a fertilizer industry. We know that. We have been when in fertilizer manufacture. You know that when you make phosphoric acid, being a chemical engineer,
Yeah,
phosphoric acid, rock phosphate, and sulfuric acid together, you make phosphoric acid, and you get a byproduct like gypsum.
yeah.
Okay, this gypsum comes as a byproduct, and in all the fertilizer factories you would find, which has used these phosphatic fertilizers, you would find heaps and heaps of gypsum being there in mountains of gypsum. In our company, the company in which I was working, 250 acres of land is filled with gypsum. This is where it is. So we have been in the past, we were happy. Nobody questioned us, nobody asked us. But now we are concerned about the environment. You would find that the entire gypsum is being converted into building material. I don't know whether you chemical you are converting into building materials, and the entire thing is being used. And you would also find that in many places, the you
We
will
are,
it
sir.
can be,
We are. Yeah.
yeah, in chemical industry, about zero discharge. Okay, you heard about zero discharge. Zero discharge is the effluent that comes out
Yeah,
of
yeah. Come from
your,
the
yeah,
industry.
it's again reprocessed, and you would ensure that nothing goes out, because many of the industries which were set up, chemical industry, since they need huge amounts of water, set up near rivers and all that, they were discharging their effluents. It was going to the rivers. Now it's not happening.
Yeah,
They will
we
not
are
allow.
thinking about the 3 R's, sir, first.
Yeah.
We
So
use,
so
recycle,
you
and
are taking yeah. So one is it is damaging the community, the environment around, lot of diseases. I don't know about the spraying of this thing. There were some endosulfan victims in Kerala. I don't know whether you are aware of it. Being chemical, I was just telling.
I know,
Yeah.
sir.
So it's a long term effect on the society. Community has been that. You also know about it. I am not mentioning about the soft drinks industry. Many of the units have been closed down. I'm not talking about the particular company's name, name. It has closed down because they were over exploiting the groundwater resources. Okay, so productivity, if you are producing more and more of software bottles and selling it and getting it, that is the way you are looking at productivity. But you are not taking care of the environment, you are not taking care of the community, then you are nowhere. You are not there. The company is not going to be there. And that is where the relevance of productivity to community and environment comes in.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yes.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, we have a 4 hand raise. Shall I take
Okay.
the question?
Yeah, you can. You can. If time permits, you
So
can. I have no problem.
only I will take this 4 question and then we will
Okay.
sum up. Jaideep Bhosle,
Okay.
your mic is on. Can you raise your question, Jaideep?
Hello. Sir, I am Jaydeep Bhosle. Can you hear me, sir? Hello.
Yes. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I can.
I wanted to know, is it productivity is, if we are going for the automation, is it going to help in the flexible manufacturing system? Because some it will be changes in the product. So can we go for the same setup for the product?
Yeah. No. Again, productivity. You would find today. Flexible manufacturing. All that it is possible. How it is. How does flexible manufacturing is made possible is that suppose you have in an organization where for example the automobile company where you are making the first one with some features, then the cars are being made with one color. The second one after something patch you need to go for the other line, but you want to do all the things in the same line. This is what you are meaning by flexible manufacturing from the same line. Okay.
Okay.
Now in this case again, how is it being done? That it is possible. Technologically it is possible. And if you change, you don't have to use if you have a different spray system by which it could be done the same line it could be done, or you can change the line. Or you can use the assembly products, all that sub assemblies. You can change the sub assemblies. You can do that. You can use the same line. It's all how you manage. See, you're looking at that is where the innovation in manufacturing comes in, by looking at what best could be done, but with the limitations that we have in mind. We would like to, we cannot today. Yeah, but because for your information, when um, um, this nano was envisaged, they thought that they will have distributed manufacturing, and they will send the products, and then they will ask customer specifications, what all things you want this one thing we included, this one thing we included, and then they used to assemble all that and give them. Some electric scooters in the country are going to come like that, in parts, and then depending upon your choice, you want this additional thing, that additional thing, it will be assembled and given us. So it is also possible, this in distributor or flexible manufacturing also productivity can be improved.
Okay,
Only thing you need deeper study, and you have to do that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Next
Thank you.
question is Jitesh. Jitesh, please ask your question,
Yes,
and
sir.
it will be very limited.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
So
please.
actually, good morning, sir. So actually, my question is a little bit out of track. Sir, as we know in this today's world of challenge, building a welfare organization that is non-profitable is difficult. So, sir, I would like to know your opinion that if I have to start a welfare organization, how can I make my path?
The welfare organization, there are a lot of, that there are a lot of not-for-profit organizations functioning in
Non-profitable.
the country. Okay, there are, it's all either welfare organization, or you could say social organizations. Social
Yes, sir.
organizations with a social purpose. But remember, no social organization was without generating profit.
Profit, yes.
Okay, but what they do is the profit they generate is plowed back for social causes.
Yes,
This is
sir.
how social organization. No, you cannot. Otherwise, somebody should finance you. If you are living on donations, it is fine. Somebody is donating. Otherwise, all social organizations, you would find, social organizations are organizations that generate profit, but they don't use that profit. They use that profit for social purposes. It comes back to the business, and that is how it is done. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question is Anuprita Bhosle. Please ask Anuprita.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, my question is, what is the impact of artificial intelligence on the future of industries, and how it will affect the job enhancement?
Yeah, you have this, anyway, it is not coming as part of mine, but I don't know whether you have understood whether you have attended the first session, the first session by our eminent professor on the education 4.0. I don't know whether
Dr.
you had
S.S.
the
Mantha.
privilege to.
Dr. S.S. Mantha.
Yeah, Dr. S.S. Panta, we had the privilege, it was a very, very exhaustive presentation because it's going to artificial intelligence, IoT, Internet of Things. These are going to be the order of the day. You yourself, you will go to the market and buy only a fan, that is programmed, that can automatically buy, that can sense the temperature and then increase the speed. These sort of things are happening now, and then it is going to these technological innovations and interventions are going to affect the product and the way we work. So people have to be prepared for that. Existing people have to be retrained, reskilled to meet those challenges. Or in the new educational system, that what you were telling is that you have to revamp the education system to meet the emerging needs of industry. So it is going to affect labor, it's going to all that, but then you should ask yourself, are you going to be one among them going to be affected, or am I going to reskill myself to change over to some other thing in which I can utilize my strength and capabilities? This is the only challenge which each one of us as individuals are facing. Okay.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Thank you.
Last question we will take Dheeraj More. Please ask Dheeraj.
Hello, sir. A very good afternoon. First of all, thank you so much for a wonderful session. Sir, I want to know your views with correlation of today's topic with education system. Can you please elaborate in your views?
Yeah, educational system, I would like to say that, today's education system, what Professor Monti has been telling in the innovation, and I think if you have not, been part of it, it is, you should get a copy of that, from wherever it is available. What he says is that the changes that are going to happen in the education system, he was trying to mention in that presentation. He was just on one side, correlation between the industry 4.0, the demands of the industry for future, and the education system, how it has to be revamped to meet the demands of the industry. This, of course, you would ask, what about the existing people, the people who are already there? They have to reskill themselves. They have to update themselves. No other alternative. But the new generation which are going to come out have to have to come through the new system. And there he mentioned one important thing, which I have also mentioned in my slide: unleashing the creativity, ingenuity, and innovation capability of the people. The education system of future is not going to be the type of lecture system. He already mentioned that it is going to make you think. It is going to, you have to think about the purpose. You have to think about use your capabilities. You have to be passionate about what you are doing, and you should be okay. You should know something about all the things that is happening around, but you should be an expert or skill in some area where you can use your capabilities and where you can show your strengths. See, normally, what is said is that it's the strengths only that can be enhanced. If you have weaknesses, that cannot be enhanced. So try to identify the weak strengths in each one of us and try to enhance those strengths for the advantage. The education system is trying to be more participative in nature, is going to try to be more innovative, and that is what we are trying to do, more project based, not going to be the type of thing that we are seeing today or what we are experiencing. That already, a big presentation has been made by professor during the initial thing. You can also refer to any other material that is available. It's happening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. I have received many questions in the chat room, but I have consolidated that, and I will ask one question on behalf of that all. How this post-COVID-19 situation will affect the manufacturing industries as far as its productivity, as far as labors, as far as the overall manufacturing market is concerned?
Now, it's a very serious question, which most of the manufacturing companies are concerned about. But there are certain, bright signals that you see. You find, many companies like Suzuki. Suzuki has announced that they have restarted their plant. They have restarted their plan and things are happening as it is. There is no problem. Only thing is they are adhering to all the guidelines of COVID-19, but they are restarting their plan. Only thing we have to be responsible. The point that has to be made is that it is not that somebody is forcing you to do. You are doing it on your own for your own safety and the safety of all those people around us. If something happens to you, it is not only for you, your entire family. If something happens to you in the workplace, it is also. That is how the productivity. But then I think companies, institutions, are manufacturing companies are coming back to normalcy. There are things what we see in the case of Mahindra and all, many are depending more and more on the online systems for servicing, for sales, for dispatching their products, all that, or physical movements are being avoided. But then it will take some time for us to adjust itself, but it is going to happen, and it will happen also soon. Only and workers also are getting adjusted in the IT sectors. That service sectors. The work from home is going to be the new norm. But manufacturing sector again, you cannot have that, but more extended working hours or shift working hours or things like that is going to happen. But keeping all the precautions that we need to take in mind. So that is the only thing, sir. But temporarily there will be a shortfall, but definitely we are going to come out of that.
Understood. Thank you so much. Sir, I would like to sum up and I will make you free within 5 minutes, sir. With your kind permission.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much for your very nice presentation, which started with the explaining about the COVID-19 situation as far as the in general is concerned. The productivity is the prime objective of industrial engineering. Productivity, value chain, sustainability, change of management, these all are the aspects you have very well explained in this particular era of the industrial engineering. And that is not to the mechanical production or chemical is concerned, but it is applicable to all the industries at this particular situation. The productivity concept, rethinking productivity, its integrated approach is very much necessary, as you said. Sustainable value chain is one of the important aspects in this particular manufacturing era. You have also very well explained about the example of cup of tea, and which is the traditional approach. Now it's a focus on the labor and then related with the outcome. It is a job of engineers nowadays to provide the maximum output in a limited resources, and that is the expectation from each and every industry or you can say the employer. You have also very well discussed about the productivity in manufacturing, which is important, and that productivity in a different aspect as factors and total, and that is related with the input and output is concerned, and which is the ratio of that. You have also concluded, you have also explained different kind of the aspects of the Darwin and then CCC and then volatile, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguousness. So that all are very well explained by you. You have also explained the latest example of the COVID-19 situation, which is applicable to the industry scenario as far as the different kind of products are concerned, because now the little bit the things are going to be changed. There is a suddenly the demand in the mask, suddenly demand in the PPT kits, and other related related required things which is applicable or which is to be as per the government norms and in this social distancing. So you have very well explained that. You have also given the example of Tesla and its other companies also as far as the comparison is concerned. You also explained the total productivity approach, that is input, process, and output, which is very important for any kind of engineers, not only for the industrial engineer, even though the person is from computer, IT, or electronics, but they have to follow this particular thing. Then you have concluded your presentation in a very nice manner, that is the profit, people, and planet, and by quoting the different kind of quotes, that is the quotes of Mahatma Gandhi, the quotes of Aristotle, the quote of Professor C.K. Prahalad and Professor Shiv Khera. And ultimately, this productivity creativity, and innovation. This is the message which you have given to my students and whatever the delegates or whatever the people those are available on this your talk on Zoom line. Sir, I would like to inform one more thing. Our stalwarts people from III is also available on this. For your information, I would like to inform our chairperson, Mr. Damodar Bhagat, is also on this Zoom. Our next speaker, that is Dr. Tushar Desai, is also in the room. Our other Dr. Sunab Pawar is also there. Our Dr. I think James is also there. Our Dr. Bokade is also there. So many our III senior members are there on this particular Zoom. So with this, sir, I would like to thank you so much for this nice presentation. And so thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful talk.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, sir.
Thank you.
This is the quote which is from all of us that about your nice presentation, and it is very much valuable, your inputs as well as guidance for the today's delegate. This is the small kind of the plaque which we are providing to the guest in a physical manner, but you please accept our token of appreciation, sir. Your appreciation
Thank you,
for
thank you, sir.
association
Thank
and
you.
in presence
Thank you.
and deliver the expert talk on this productivity and management of change is very nice. I am very much thankful on behalf of Datta Mege College of Engineering. I am very much thankful on behalf of our III DMC student chapter and all students, delegates, and on my personal behalf. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.